that based on content, context, and timing, it's benign, it's innocuous. So in retrospect, I think I probably am the person referred to.
Roger Stone there, former Trump campaign advisor, acknowledging the possibility that he could be one of the unnamed Americans in the new Mueller indictment. Well, joining me now, Democratic Congressman Denny Heck of Washington. He's a member of the Intelligence Committee. With a big welcome to you. I'm eager to get your reaction to what Sam Nunberg told me just a few moments ago about Roger Stone, because Stone went specifically before your committee and was not forthcoming about a number of things.
Yeah, several hours of my life I'm never going to get back, Alex. So I agreed with some of what Sam said, and I think I have a slightly different perspective on other things. First of all, I think an entire cottage industry is being created by people who think that they can speculate as to where Bob Mueller is headed, and I don't think we frankly can in the particular. I think we can in the general, and in the general, the walls are closing in. There's really relatively little doubt about that as the indictments accumulate, and I think especially with the circumstance of Michael Cohen. But we don't have eyes onto Bob Mueller's direction. The other thing I think that we can say is that he doesn't have very much time, Bob Mueller that is, before, if he's going to make another announcement, he needs to do it, because I believe he'll go dark in some period of time prior to the general election, because he's not going to want to be perceived as trying to have meddled in it or have influenced the tone and direction of it.
How about the indictment itself? Does it answer the questions that you have been asking all these months? You and the Democrats have fought with Republican colleagues to make sure this investigation is allowed to continue. Did you get the answers you need?
Well, we're not done yet, and I don't think Bob Mueller's done yet. But the latest indictments this week of the 12 Russian intelligence officers really crosses into new territory on two fronts. The first is these are uniformed personnel of the Russian army, and specifically the GRU. There is now no doubt, and nobody can argue, that this was directed at the highest levels in Russia and Moscow to interfere in our election in 2016. And the second, which is very disturbing, is the evidence that the Russian hackers actually got into voter registration databases and exfiltrated information. That's very disturbing. The only thing that could be more disturbing, and there's no evidence of it, is if they changed election tallying or outcomes. I don't think that happened, but the fact of the matter is their hacking was a lot more aggressive, as evidenced by this indictment, than we suspected.
So then does this indictment quiet Republicans who are saying it's time to end this investigation, because it was pretty substantive what was put forward?
Well, I've been on the Intelligence Committee working hard at this investigation for a year and a half, and it just seems to me that there is absolutely nothing that quiets them. They use every single news development to justify their position. But Alex, let's fast rewind about 17, 18, 19 months. The president's position was then there was no hacking, period. And clearly there was hacking. And then he said it wasn't the Russians, or it wasn't in support of his candidacy. All of that has fallen by the wayside. We continue to accumulate insights and knowledge as to what happened, and I don't think that's a story that is yet concluded.
So then when you say Mueller is closing in, and the walls are closing in, on whom are you specifically referring to?
Well, I think either the president or the people around him. The one thing Sam said, and I wasn't sure that I quite caught it all together, and maybe he can correct me, is that he's not quite sure whether or not Mr. Cohen will provide information that might be of an incriminating nature either to the president or to members of his inner circle. And that seems like it's a distinct possibility. But again, I go back to what I said at the top of our conversation. This is all cottage industry speculation. None of us knows. Bob Mueller and his team know.
I'm going to tell you, Sam's still sitting here in studio. I think he just wanted to listen to what you had to say, given the way we teased the interview. And Sam, I don't think I'm out of turn in saying that you don't know what Michael Cohen is going to say. You've certainly not spoken to him about that.
I don't know what Michael's going to say, but what I would say in light of, I will only talk specifically about my voluntary, not the grand jury, because it's not fair to the taxpayer or, frankly, Mueller's team. In light of the questions they were asking me about Michael, in light of the fact they wanted information about, you know, the kind of questions were, what was Michael's relationship with the president like, in your opinion? What have you heard? What did you know about certain issues? And look, I've said publicly, women issues, things like that. there was questions or discussion about Michael's private businesses that have nothing to do with Trump Organization, to which, by the way, I don't have any real firsthand knowledge. To that extent, Michael, once again, and this is where I would respectfully disagree with the congressman, is, well, actually, I don't really disagree with the congressman. He's right that they're closing in on the president. Mueller is building this narrative. Roger Stone and Michael Cohen are critical. With that said, Mueller, I think, learned a lesson from the Manafort indictment in terms of he has to get them on collusion. If he does something that's nothing to do with the campaign, people like me and people like his colleagues on the other aisle will just say, what the hell is this?
So Congressman Heck has said that he thinks that Mueller's closing in on either the people around the president or the president. And you think that they're actually closing in on the president? I mean, you just indicated that. Is that what you want to stick with?
Well, of course, they're trying to close in the First of all, in general, a special counsel investigating an ultimate target is going for that target. That has nothing to do. I'm not saying anything badly about these people for that. With that said, there is, and this is the president's fault in some ways, there is smoke. As I've said, and as this none of us would have been going through this had the president not hosted the Russians less than 24 hours after he fired Comey.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? So I agree that there's more information that eventually will come out. Obviously, Michael Flynn flipping, to the extent that Gates has already flipped, the pressure they're putting on Manafort, I believe, to flip. The idea that other people reported that a conversation between Roger Stone and Rick Gates concerning emails, I would assume. What did the campaign know specifically?
Congressman, I do want to get your reaction as we look ahead to things now. Granted, we had the president tweeting about this morning. He was once again blaming the Obama administration for all the election meddling. Do you take that as a sign of what we're going to expect from this summit with Putin? Or are you at all optimistic that this indictment is the exact pressure needed to take a stand against Russia and to pressure Vladimir Putin?
So I have to make an observation about his tweet this morning, Alex, in which he blamed the Obama administration for the Russian interference in our election. Can we just remind your viewers that this is Russian interference which the president denied for over a year ever occurred? And this is Russian interference which the Obama administration initiated an FBI investigation on in July of 2016. Let's put all of that in perspective. So my hope for the so-called summit in Helsinki tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, is pretty straightforward. It is this: he either A, cancels it, or B, and it is my preference, he shows up, he looks Putin in the eye, and he says, knock it off, we've got the goods, you're not doing this. And oh, by the way, I'm hereby announcing today, here to you, face to face, we're significantly upping the sanctions on the people around you. And we're not going to accept this going forward, period, full stop.
Congressman Denny Heck, it's always good to see you. Thank you for weighing in. And once again, our thanks to you, Sam Nunberg. All right, guys, migrant family reunions, any progress there? New numbers on how many children are back with their parents, that's coming up.